I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.
Yeah, I'm about to fade away, cause every time I wake up I feel like it's Monday. Something's going wrong with all the chemicals up in my brain. All of a sudden I don't look at anything the same way. Got a buildup of my thoughts sitting in an ashtray. I'm sorry that I'm so inconvenient, okay. Just let me be me and I'll stay out of your way. I can see the way you look at me, I'm such a disgrace. I never really asked to be brought into this place. You wanna love me? Well then baby, have a taste.
Welcome my friends. I'm in La Guardia, a famous wine town in the qualified denomination of origin Rioja, or Denominación de Origen Cualificada, DOC, in Spanish. This behind me at the end is the Sierra de Cantabria mountain range, separating Rioja Alavesa from the Atlantic Ocean. Rioja is indeed the first of the only two denominations of origin in Spain with the highest quality status of calificada. Rioja is about half the extension of Bordeaux, with which it is strongly connected for historical reasons. Irrigated by the river Ebro, very close by, Rioja is synonym of Spanish wine and has established a solid reputation for its elegant and age-worthy wines based on the Tempranillo grape. But Rioja is more than that and offers a big deal of diversity that we will explore in this documentary. I hope that you enjoyed the journey. Rioja DOC is indeed divided into three subzones within the administrative regions of La Rioja, Álava, and Navarra. Rioja Alta in the west and entirely contained inside the autonomous region La Rioja. Rioja Alavesa in the north and inside the province of Álava, part of the autonomous community of the Basque Country. And Rioja Oriental to the east, sharing areas in both La Rioja to the south and Navarra to the north. Winemaking in Rioja dates back many centuries, to the times of the Phoenicians and Celtiberians. However, written documentation regarding modern wine production is associated to monks in the 9th century, as well as evidence of wine exports to other European regions in the 12th century. Here in Logroño, an anecdotal proof of the relevance of winemaking in Rioja was the prohibition in 1635 of passing cars through the streets near wine cellars to not disturb the maturation process. When phylloxera devastated the vineyards of Bordeaux, many French makers established strong connections with Rioja, some even moving to make wine in the area. This led to a substantial improvement in the quality and philosophy of winemaking in Rioja that has survived to this time. We will discuss this and other characteristics with the General Director of the Regulatory Council of Rioja DOC. We are in Logroño, capital of La Rioja, and in the Regulatory Council of Rioja DOC. And we are interviewing the General Director, with whom we will basically discuss a little bit about the general characteristics of the denomination. was an inflection point in wine elaboration here with the arrival of phylloxera, attacking the French vineyards, and many French coming to Haro, Rioja Alta, Rioja Alavesa, establishing connections with the local winemakers.
Phylloxera attacks at the end of the 19th century, having devastated the French vineyards right before. French producers had a market to satisfy, but ran out of product. It is not strange that they looked to the south to a well-known viticultural area like Rioja. They developed rail connections with Haro, and two crucial events: the arrival of electricity to Haro and the arrival of the train. The area around the train station became a logistic business point. Some of our wineries are French-Spanish partnerships. Business that started getting French capital investment and elaboration method that was more technical to cover the needs back in France. There was a time that they needed so much quantity that it led to some irregularities, to the extreme watering down of the wine to increase volume. And wines from other areas outside of Rioja sold as Rioja wines. The producers, to defend themselves, approached the administration asking for a mechanism to identify their own wines and set the area in value. This led to the first guarantee stamp, which also certified quality and origin.
The denomination has evolved in several aspects. At some point it became calificada.
In 1991, Rioja certifies that in their wineries there is only Rioja wine and that it is bottled in Rioja states. Plus some complementary measures to achieve this recognition in 1991. Which Priorat would also get in 2006.
Stella Lecea, who is working in the family business, and she's going to explain us not how they do most of the wine here in the bodega, but a very particular method that is basically rescuing how wine has been done for centuries in this area. Stella, nice to meet you. So, can you explain us how things happen here? So, there's an opening here, that is the street, the outside, and this is a lagar, right?
Exactly, yeah. So, here is where we make our most artisan wine that is called Corazón del Lago, the heart of the lake.
This one.
Exactly. So this is a small amount of bottles in our total production. It's about 5,000 liters of the total. So this is the typical tradition that it was made since the 16th century until 40 years ago. 40 years ago, everyone abandoned this process because they had the technology. The machines, the electricity, but we decided to keep going with this tradition, and I will explain you how it works.
Okay.
So, through the door, we put inside the grapes per gravity. There is about 18,000 kilos of Tempranillo grapes inside the lake, and we leave the grapes there doing the alcoholic fermentation during 2 weeks. This process is called carbonic maceration, maceración carbónica. That means that we keep the grapes with a whole cluster, so the whole bunch of grapes, doing the alcoholic fermentation.
Right.
Inside each berry, sugar is turned into alcohol without the oxygen. So it's all together with the stem, with the skin, and that gives to the wine much more fruity aromas and fruity flavors. Okay, so that's the main difference compared with the rest of the wines in the winery, because it's the grapes with a whole cluster. We don't broke the grapes before the stepping. So we leave the grapes there 2 weeks, and every day we need to pump over. So we take the wine from the floor with a pump and tube, and we put the wine in the top. In this way, we keep the same temperature and humidity in the whole amount of grapes. So before the stepping, we open the tap and we take out the liquid the first liquid during 3 hours. This wine is called tears wine, vino de lágrima. So after the tears, we're gonna start the stepping during 8 hours, and we're gonna have the wine from the heart. For this, we need to move the grapes up and down 3 times at least. In this way, we step the whole amount of grapes. So this wine from the heart is the best, is the most quality wine.
Which is the one that
The
ends
heart.
in the bottle.
Exactly. That's why we call the wine Corazón del Lago, because it's the middle part. And
Heart
it's the best.
of the lago, lago is the lagar. Right?
Exactly. The
Of the lago.
lagar or lago, we say in English lake. So
That
the
is
day
here?
after the stepping, we move all the grapes by hand from the lake to the press. And
And this is a traditional way of pressing grapes in
Yeah.
Rioja.
Exactly.
Not the metallic ones, first with wood ones,
First
but
with
then
wood.
now with the
Exactly.
the metallic
So
ones.
this press is totally manual. There is no electricity. Okay, and this was used since the 16th century with wooden press, and 200 years ago metal press. We take out the wood, and then we make like a cake of grapes here, with all the leftover from the stepping from the first day. Because with this pressure, we will have more liters, about 500 liters extra from the press. This is the third wine. It's called press wine, and it's not the same quality as the heart, okay? So we normally mix the tears wine with the press, and the heart is in another vat, and that's the special one. Yeah.
All right, so, but this bodega is a very unique bodega, subterranean and really large, and I'd like you to give us a tour of the bodega. Okay?
Of course, let's go. Well, so this is a fan for the air ventilation. It's a manual fan, and it was used to remove the toxic gas during the alcoholic fermentation. We call it tufo. This is an old vat. It's a wooden vat that it was built here piece by piece because there's not enough space by the steps. And this vat is from the 16th century, as old as the winery. So here there is a chimney. You can have a look. You will see the light of the street.
Okay.
This is 14 meters deep, and it is very important for the air ventilation of the winery because the toxic gas during the alcoholic fermentation, the carbonic. And it was used also to remove the soil during the constructions with a pulley, manual pulley, in the 16th century. You see the concrete vats. They were built here 100 years ago, and we're still using them. This is the door to clean. And here is where we store the wine in the second fermentation after the stainless steel. And here I want to explain
The pelleja.
el pellejo.
El pellejo.
The wine skin. This is a goat, it's the whole body of the goat. The skin is inside out, and we cover the hair with a thick black resin, which is waterproof. And this was used to transport the wine from town to town. Before the bottles, so this was used by my grandfather, and it was disappeared just 50 years ago. We use these tools. This is the
Cántara.
cántara, the funnel, and the cántara. Yeah.
And then you can And this was as a measurement, it was used as a measuring device, right?
Exactly.
Because wine was measured in cantaras,
Yeah.
half cantaras, a quarter
Exactly.
of a
16 liters is 1 cantara.
16 liters. And then somebody had to go like that.
Exactly.
And how did they carry this?
Do you want me to help to show how it works?
Yes.
Turn around. Give your arms up.
Okay.
Take it.
What is the other
Take
one?
the leg. Exactly.
That's the way to go?
That's
Oh,
how
my
it
goodness.
works.
Well,
And then
it
you
looks
go
easy,
upstairs.
but it's empty now, so
Yes.
I assume it's not that easy when it's
It is
full
very
of wine.
heavy, full, more than 100 liters inside.
Oh my God.
And they need to carry this upstairs because it was no electricity.
Yeah.
So
All
then they sell it to someone, was called the arriero. That person carried the wine from Rioja to Bilbao, San Sebastian, Burgos.
So I can imagine arrieros were really strong men. Recently, you have followed an approach most related to the terroir, similar to how it's done in Burgundy, as you have started to qualify the wines as vinos de pago, or wines of a territory.
The goal is not to do what is done elsewhere. That would be a mistake. Each denomination, Rioja or any other, should follow its own way. This doesn't mean that we don't look at the market trends, what the market is looking for. In the end, it is all a business transaction. I sell a bottle of wine for a price, and the consumer is willing to pay it. And it is clear that a fraction of customers, not all, have a new interest. They are not just looking for quality alone. The quality that a winery offers in its crianthas, reservas and grand reservas, on the elaboration method separating a criantha from a reserva. But a new wave of customers and opinion leaders that want to make the vineyard the main character. Moving the focus from the winery to the vineyard. And the producer, if capable of doing it, wants to put that effort in tracing a product all the way back from the vineyard. Therefore, in 2017, we decided to establish the mechanisms to facilitate that this information could be certified by an independent body, such as the Regulatory Council. We don't certify only regarding the territory, but also attending to some requirements of quality, production levels, a minimum vine age, hard harvesting, exhaustive organoleptic controls. If your vineyard is recognised as a singular vineyard, it's like your child gets admitted into a top college. But that's just the starting point. Then you have to get tested on a yearly basis to prove that you can still qualify.
What are those qualifications in detail?
In conjunction with the standard categories, we have promoted 3 territorial identities. One is Vino di Zona, or area wine, related to Rioja Alavesa, Rioja Alta, and Rioja Oriental. Then we also identify wine coming from a single municipality, basically narrowing the focus. And the last level relates to wines produced out of a viñedo singular. Why viñedo singular? First, we identify the plot. This is similar to Burgundy. We establish the rationale for making a vineyard singular. And from that basic information, we look for the favourable report of the Regulatory Council and the Ministry of Agriculture. There is an agrogeological study of the terrain. Then a set of characteristics, such as the vineyard age should be a minimum of 35 years old. no more than 80% of production level with respect to the average. All years should be hand harvested, and that the production level is obtained naturally. It does not work if the vineyard produces 10,000 kilos and I get rid of half of it. The vigour should be restrained naturally. And then there is a high level of control associated to this particular vineyard. Finally, the wine produced will be evaluated before it gets aged in the winery. And before it gets to the market, a new evaluation of the wine must guarantee that the 5 judges in the Regulatory Council declare the wine as excellent.
In this section, we will cover the specific nature of the climate, geology, and soils of the 3 subzones of Rioja. We are near La Bastida, a beautiful town of Rioja Alavesa, the northeast subzone of Rioja DOC, and perhaps the one most influenced by the Atlantic Ocean. Indeed, the climate in Rioja is extremely complex and at the crossroad between 3 different climatologic influences. The austere continental climate of regions to the south, somehow moderated by the range Sierra de la Demanda, the humid and cold influence from the nearby Atlantic Ocean to the north, moderated by the Sierra de Cantabria mountains, right behind me, and the influence of the Mediterranean from the east, leading to a gradual climatologic variation across the region. As a result, Rioja benefits from a moderate climate with rainfall spread out throughout the season, with mild and humid winters and drier summers. Changes in altitude and aspects due to the multiple mountain ranges create a diversity of microclimates that explain the complexity of the multiple styles of wine found in this region. We are in San Vicente de la Sonsierra. I am with Javier Salcedo, who is General Manager of Bodegas Tobelos. Javier, thanks for receiving us. How would you define the climate of Rioja Alta? Although I understand it's difficult to differentiate from Rioja Alavesa, which is right here.
We are next to the Sierra de Cantabria. We have it behind us. This is a pretty cold climate, although we're not at very high altitude. These vineyards are 500 to 550 metres high, but the wind that comes from the mountain is strong. It has good levels of rainfall. As you can see, these are vineyards without irrigation, so we depend on the rain. The most important thing is this wind that we feel now that is here around the year. This is the best to preserve the vines in all seasons. The healthiest after rain is this cold air from the mountains. It cools down and dries the grape. And then in summer, we have what a quality grape needs. We have sunlight and heat during the day, but with a large thermal variation overnight. The temperature drops, helping the ripening of the grape.
We're here with Magda Clavijo, who is an agronomy engineer working in Contino Winery in particular, but within the group of Cune in Rioja Alavesa. And she's going to tell us a little bit about the viticultural practices that they follow in this company. Hi Magda, thanks for receiving us. The climate, contextualized within the Alavesa and differentiated from Alta and Oriental.
The main difference in Rioja Alavesa is the Sierra de Cantabria that stops the cold air that would come from the Atlantic Ocean, as well as the hot air from the continent. When these collide, the humidity stays in this area. The climate is very stable, not a lot of heat. Summers are hot, but cold overnight. is a very specific climate in this area, characterized by a higher rainfall due to the Sierra di Cantabria. This is an absolutely outstanding climate for viticulture.
We are in Alfaro, in a very special vineyard, and with Victor Escudero, who is family owner and agronome engineer in charge of the vineyards of Bodegas Ilurce. Hi Victor, thanks for receiving us.
Thank you for coming to meet us. Alfaro is the last municipality irrigated by the River Ebro in La Rioja and has the largest area under vine of the denomination of origin Rioja with 6.6%. It is a municipality defined by the River Ebro in the north and Sierra de Yerga here behind us in the south. This makes Alfaro one of the municipalities with the most Mediterranean climate of the denomination. This translates into very dry summers with high temperatures and moderate winters. But above all, what characterizes our climate, aside of temperature, is rainfall. The dry season runs from June to September and makes the vineyards in this zone to be very well adapted to drought, with very deep roots to look for water storage in the soil from spring. Average rainfall ranges between 350 and 400 millimeters, depending on the year.
That's really in the lowest limit for grape production. The geological characteristics of Rioja are determined by the different mountains isolating this area from the north and south. Vineyards in Rioja Alta in the northwest experience the highest altitude, while those in Rioja Oriental to the southeast are the lowest with respect to sea level. Soils change as well across the region. Vineyards in the margin of the River Ebro present alluvial soils composed of sand and stones, allowing roots to dig to high depths. Further down the river, and particularly in Rioja Alta and Oriental, deep and compacted clay soils have a high proportion of iron, which gives them a brownish color. The soils in the north are predominantly calcareous clay, of yellowish color and poor drainage capacity. These are difficult to cultivate as well, due to the irregular orography of the terrain and the presence of a rocky subsoil. This diversity of soil composition, together with the variety of aspects, elevations and climatic conditions, explain the large selection of wines produced in Rioja. We are with Luis Alberto Lecea, who is the owner of Bodegas Lecea.
This is a calcareous clay soil. This vineyard is approximately 60 years old. It has a very poor production, but it provides very good quality. Dominated by the Garnacha variety, but it also has some Tempranillo, since in the past the vines used to be mixed. This is a very traditional vineyard. There are not that many anymore, as you modernize and change. However, we need to make use of what we have conserved from the past, as there aren't that many old vineyards with different clones in different vines. These are vineyards that need to be valued and protected. Having new things is easy. Caring for old things is more difficult.
So we're here with Ignacio Gil, who is the family owner and enologist of Bodegas Mitarte. Ignacio, thanks for receiving us.
Glad to receive you.
The geology. We're so close to the mountains that there is nothing flat around here. For example, in this vineyard, which is so special as we will discuss, it has undulations, changes in altitude. It is important, the aspects.
Here there are many vineyards that are very small. There are multiple terraces, We come down from the mountain and there are terraces all the way down to the Ebro. There are many, small and different. The orientation is very important. Some vineyards next to each other are very different. The soil is mainly calcareous clay. It is very good for the growing of the grape. There are also very alluvial soils closest to the Ebro, but mainly calcareous. There are many small vineyards. There are also lots of forest plants, interacting with the vine, giving some special characteristics to the grape.
What is the soil in this particular plot?
This is calcareous clay.
Which is typical of Rioja Alavesa.
In the north part and in Alta, this is one of the best soils for the vineyard because it's stratified with a rock underneath and vines adapt very well here.
Is it permeable?
Pretty good. It's not rich. Practically speaking, it's almost poor, which is good for the vineyard. But the best is the stratification. It's easy to cultivate, but it has rock underneath that makes humidity to be stored. The vine survives in times of lack of water.
So we are with Fernando Esquerro, who is the president of Bodega Marqués de Reynosa, which is a cooperative, a very, very large cooperative, but he's also the president of the Regulatory Council of Rioja DOC. Fernando, thanks for receiving us.
Thanks for coming.
The orography of this region is pretty flat when compared with Rioja Alta or Alavesa.
Not really that much. In my municipality, Ortal, we have vineyards at 400 meters. And we also have some at 700 meters, right in the mountains. Rioja gets in a valley, which is the Ebro Valley. And we are in between two ranges. To the north of the Sierra de la Demanda, Yerga is part of the range, and I believe that this is more abrupt. Rioja Alavesa, and particularly Rioja Alta, don't have so many mountains. The part with more mountains of Rioja Alta is not inside Rioja do. Here you find lots of stones, rolling stones, and poor soils. I am not a technician, but these are calcareous clay, very calcareous. However, the soils are deeper than in other areas, which works well when the rain comes, because it rains very hard at times, and this helps with drainage.
I'm here with Borja Ripa, who is the technical director of Bodegas Manzanos Winery. Borja, thanks a lot for receiving us.
Thank you, Enrique. Specifically, we are in Rioja del Reino, a municipality in the community of Navarra, before Reino de Navarra, pertaining to the denomination of origin Rioja. We are closer to the mountain and the climate is a little cooler and with more rain than on the other side of the Ebro. In the left margin of the Ebro we are Rioja Alavesa and Rioja del Reino. Rioja Alavesa as the part of Rioja inside Álava, Rioja del Reino as the part of Rioja inside Navarra.
I assume this makes you share some characteristics.
Yes, when it comes to soils, we have calcareous clay, which is also found in Rioja Alavesa.
More characteristic of the north of Rioja in general.
And the other side of the Ebro.
Grape growing in Rioja has been developed for centuries and by a large number of viticulturists. Although the region was impacted by the abandonment of rural areas in the last part of the 20th century, Rioja has not suffered from it to the same extent of other wine production areas in Spain, perhaps due to the long and solid reputation of the area in the international scene. Viticulturists as well as winemakers have evolved during the last decades in search of quality rather than quantity, and both modern and traditional approaches are currently implemented in the field. There is no one definition of how viticulture is practiced in Rioja. The diversity of soils, terrain, orography, and microclimates across the region has led to a multitude of viticultural approaches. We are in Alfaro, the easternmost town in Rioja Oriental. Indeed, we can see the Moncayo mountain in Aragon from here. Although under the same common umbrella, viticulture here is definitively different than in other areas of Rioja, since, for example, different grapes adapt better than others to this drier climate. Well, let's learn about these differences from viticulturists from the three Rioja subzones. Tell me about this vineyard. This is exclusively Viura, because the vines were already here, right?
That's correct, here for 80 years. There is a difference from the current Viura, as currently you can select the clone according to what you are looking for. And most Viura comes from the same clones. This one comes from 80 years ago when they planted what they had. It came from their neighbours or someone who came to visit from outside, from other places, and brought plants from white grapes that were planted and reproduced. This confers a richness to the vineyards that you don't find in recent vineyards. This is a Viura vineyard, but you can find plants from other white varieties, intercalated even with different clones. That, combined with the old age of the vines and a low production, gives us complexity, structure and body. This has nothing to do with Viura wines from young vines.
I wanted to ask you, not only for this vineyard, but in general, about the disease pressure in this area. Is it high? You have some more humidity?
Not really. Note that these vineyards that we find in this area, all our vineyards are between Briñas, where we have the winery, and San Vicente de Son Sierra, La Bastida and San Vicente. The river does not affect the vineyards too much, with respect to humidity. And it's not a hot area, thus not very favourable for fungus. And then this wind that we have across the year dries the plant quickly after it rains. Water penetrates in the soil but does not stay in the plant, not helping the proliferation of fungal diseases. Our best ally is the environment.
The oldest vineyards, like this one, which is 119 years old, do not require ploughing. Basically, no ploughing. We do sustainable viticulture. We are not ecologic in the official way. We understand that to practice high-level viticulture, we need a sustainable structure. We don't use herbicides or insecticides. Actually, herbicides only in a few vineyards, and only during winter, and a contact herbicide, never systemic. And when a plant suffers from a disease, then you have to heal it or prevent it from happening. Mainly preventive. Basically, sustainable and avoiding any excess of diseases.
What diseases you have here?
Mainly 3 diseases. Powdery, downy mildew and botrytis. There are more, but they are pretty well under control. We don't use insecticides as they are not necessary anymore. The mildews and the botrytis are the ones we have to take care of.
We are currently in pruning season. Currently it's becoming more mechanised with electric shears. Before it was manual, they were brute force shears. Now with the electric ones, you press a button. We have also changed what we do with the pruned wood. Before it was usually taken away and put on the fire. Now you crush it and we disperse it in the soil so that you don't need to add mineral fertilizers. This is a privileged zone for viticulture that is becoming very organic. We have far fewer fungal diseases than other areas. We don't have humidity, which helps to practice organic viticulture. One thing we are focusing on is to minimize the addition of artificial ingredients. Traditionally, the vineyard only needed one insecticide for the vine moth. This has been completely replaced by sexual confusion with pheromones, which has completely eliminated the only insecticide applied to the vineyard. We only treat the vine with antifungal treatments.
I feel this way, which I assume is pretty constant, as I see a lot of windmills. This helps in keeping a healthy viticulture.
That's exactly right. We have two main things here: drought, low rainfall levels, and wind from the north, which is the dominant wind that makes our vineyards less prone to mildew, making it only occasional, once every 20 years. This is more complicated in other zones.
Ours is a particular philosophy of respect to nature and the vineyards, as we live off them. We have to respect it or we will lose it. This is a heritage from generation to generation. We must conserve it, improve and expand, but based in respect. Pruning is made here as it can be done in the rest of Rioja or other places of Spain and France. We use vine bunches, which is the traditional method that we see here. This is a high bunch with several branches, each with several buds. Here we have only one with 6. This gives us around 6,000 kilos per hectare allowed by the Regulatory Council.
That translates into 6,000 bottles of wine?
Right, they translate into 6,000 bottles of wine.
What is your disease pressure?
Here, particularly bad is the vine moth that can lead to big losses. The first generations lead to a small loss, which is not very substantial. But the second and third, particularly the third, leads to huge losses due to botrytis if there is some humidity at the time of pre-harvest. The problem is that botrytis that leads to loss of quality from one day to the next. Therefore, the vine moth, Botrane, we have been able to control it in recent years by using pheromones to confuse them. It confuses them sexually, making male and female to not meet, so that they cannot reproduce, laying the eggs that cause the problems.
Rioja is distinctively associated to the Tempranillo grape, and Tempranillo dominates the region with 70% of the plantings, almost 90% of the red grape plantings. It is indeed the base of most red wines produced in Rioja. It offers different characteristics depending on where it's grown. However, it is not the only one. Graciano, Mazuelo, and Garnacha usually accompany Tempranillo in red Rioja blends, complementing it with their different characteristics. Some of these varieties are gaining attention by many consumers, and winemakers are increasingly using them in fabulous single varietal wines. Shaded by the international recognition of Tempranillo, plantings of white grapes have decreased substantially in the last 30 years, dropping to 6% of the total planting in 2012. However, the incorporation of new grapes to the DO and renewed efforts to modernize white wine production has seen a substantial increase in plantings most recently. Viura still dominates as the flagship white grape of Rioja, leading to age-worthy white wines of high body and concentration. Garnacha is not precisely the grape of this area. It is found more in Rioja Oriental, right?
Garnacha is a variety we have always had. We've had a lot of Garnacha. What happened? Competition in the market made us pull up Garnacha vines and replant with others with a higher production. Better economically. What has remained of Garnacha is worth conserving, as it is our culture, our history. I'm not going to say if it's a better wine or not, those are opinions, but these are very characteristic wines. Now that we are looking for different things, it is worth maintaining it. Garnacha is typical from this area. 40 or 50 years ago, we started pulling them off, replacing them with varieties easier to cultivate.
You are experimenting with a monovarietal from this vineyard.
Still not in the market, but we are going to launch a monovarietal of Garnacha. Very low production, as this is a very small vineyard, but we are very excited to bring a Garnacha to the market. We keep producing wines from all varieties.
You use Tempranillo, the main variety.
You need to keep the tradition. In Rioja, this is Crianzas, Reservas, traditional wines of great quality. But you also need to play with different varieties, different things, because the customers look for new experiences. Aside of the routine, we also like to experience different things. I never say better or worse, I just say different. All are of great quality, but we like to experiment, and that is why you need different options.
Aside of Tempranillo, I believe Graciano is a grape that you first experimented with, focusing dedicated effort in your group.
Indeed, Group Graciano, we are developing a product now downhill over there, where from our own DNA, we are producing clones to replant new expressions of Graciano.
Graciano, Mazuelo, Tempranillo, y Garnacha are the red grapes of Rioja. Do they require different attention? Some are harvested earlier than others?
Yes, they have nothing to do with each other. Tempranillo, as the name indicates, is the one that ripens first and is easy to care for. It does not give you lots of problems. Mazuelo requires lots of care because it's a bit tight cluster, prone to mildew. Graciano cannot be defoliated because it would get burnt and it does not ripen.
The thinner skin?
Graciano has slightly thinner skin and gets easily burnt. It is very sensitive to sunlight. With Garnacha, you need to be very careful when flowering, because if you treat it at that time or run the vineyard with a tractor or it rains, affects the flowering and develops millerrages, and you don't have the clusters you would need.
These vines are centenary.
They are 119 years old this year. They were planted in 1903. It is a vineyard of 1 hectare, a beautiful vineyard. We have excellent vines of several varieties, mainly Tempranillo, Garnacha, Viura. Those are dominant. There is also Mazuelo, there is Caragaño, Malvasia. They used to plant several varieties to guarantee production. This is a nice vineyard, still not pruned. We will prune it now in February.
Is it singular?
Yes, it is qualified as singular.
We've bet on a variety that we discovered here from the mutation of Tempranillo, which is Tempranillo Blanco, a viticulturalism from Murillo de Rioleza here in Rioja Oriental, who found a branch that had white grapes, and instead of getting rid of them, which is what everybody would have done, they called a research centre and began to reproduce that mutation. We will taste it later, it's really good. This year, we will also produce a line of white Garnacha. With the white Tempranillo, we have 3 wines, one young and fruity, another with barrique, fermented in barrique in the category of Crianza, and a semi-sweet. We believe that is a very rich variety. It has very characteristic aromas of white fruits. It's a marvellous wine. The problem is that it's too easy to drink.
Garnacha, perhaps also Graciano. Now you talk about the new white Tempranillo. Do they adapt better to this climate?
This is an excellent zone for Garnacha. This is an area where Garnacha is fantastic, and Tempranillo is more mineral. Rioja has always been. The big wineries and the grand wines of Rioja have always been a coupage between different zones. One zone provided more fruity characteristics, another more power and structure. In the end, if you want a wine to age for many years, you need power for the wine to tolerate the barrique. This is a privileged zone for wine production.
Rioja is a denomination of origin where 91% of the grapes are red and 9% white. 87% is Tempranillo, 6.5% Garnacha and 2% Graciano. And then the others Mazuelo and Maturana Tinta. This was not like this in the past. Around 1970, 39% of the grapes were Garnacha and only 31% Tempranillo. What's the problem? The Garnacha variety is not very productive. And in those years, the yields were not as good as can be now. Garnacha was more spread out.
It needs longer to ripen, right?
Exactly. It has a life cycle longer than Tempranillo and tolerates hot climates much better, like in Alfaro where we are.
I see. Garnacha. Most Garnacha production occurs here, in Rioja Oriental, right?
Yes, in Rioja Oriental.
And then also Graciano, a grape difficult to control. It is also getting popular here. You produce a monovarietal, right?
Yes, a monovarietal of Graciano. Graciano is a variety that has been traditionally used to improve the grand wines of coupage. Graciano is very well adapted to the climate of Rioja Oriental because it's a variety with a longer life cycle than Garnacha and drought tolerant. And it maintains the acidity very well. All this makes it adapt very well to this area. We need varieties of a long life cycle, as we are hotter than the rest of Rioja. We have very well adapted Graciano and Garnacha, which are varieties of longer cycle than Tempranillo. We also have a very good Tempranillo, but if we have to remark something particular to this area are Graciano and Garnacha. We make monovarietals of Garnacha and Graciano, and we also use them in coupage of traditionally blended wines.
We are in the Barrio de la Estación, or Station Quarter, in the historical town of Haro in Rioja Alta. Here we find the installations of several of the best-known wineries of Rioja. The reason is the train station that connected wine production in Rioja with other parts of the world, particularly with Bordeaux in the beginning of the 20th century. Winemaking in Rioja is a natural projection of its climatologic and geological diversity. However, we find two well-differentiated philosophies. On the one hand, there are those who maintain the traditional approach and bring to the maximum expression all style and powerful wines with a complex bouquet and made to be aged for decades. On the other hand, a modern winemaking approach is looking to represent the vineyard into more fruity and elegant styles that appeal to the modern consumer. The result? A beautiful dance that brings to the table marvelous wines of all kinds. We are with Julio Sáenz, enologist of La Rioja Alta. Julio, thanks for receiving us.
The grapes are placed on this conveyor belt and arrive to these machines that will first destem them, separate the berries from the stems, and each berry gets into this other belt individualized to pass through this machine. This is a scanner that scans in 3 dimensions each berry, such that we can determine what is the color, shape and size of each berry for the elaboration of our wines. The scanner uses a learning program that separates those berries that do not meet the standards for our needs.
And then they arrive here to these few tanks where they ferment.
Yes, here we have a bit of a more complex process, as after the berries have been selected, we fill these stainless steel tanks in a way that allows us to separate each vineyard plot or grape characteristics. This enables selecting grapes for each particular wine style. We use remontage, but depending on whether it goes to crianza, reserva or gran reserva, the intensity of the remontage and treatment of the grapes is done differently. The malolactic fermentation is also done in these stainless steel tanks. In other wineries of the group, we do malolactic fermentation in barriques. For the more classic Rioja wines, we prefer to make it here.
Therefore, the classic wines only see oak during maturation.
That's correct, as they will be in oak for a long time. This is one way to adapt the method to the length of crianza that we'll have later.
Well, let's go to see the crianza of your wines. This is to heat the barrels, right?
This is to make them. These are American oak barriques. This is an oven, and you place the wood on fire so that the wood takes the required shape with the heat. There is no glue used. Due to the characteristics of oak, when it bends into this rounded shape, it gets to form a completely sealed container.
Julio, we are in the room of the barriques for the crianza of the wines. Can you explain the process?
All our wines are aged in American oak. We make our own barriques. We use oak from USA, American oak. We let the wood dry for 3 years, and then we make all the barriques used to do our wines. We use a very traditional method that guarantees the quality of our wines. For the crianza, we use the traditional racking from Bordeaux, using the light of a candle to separate the sediment that is created.
You change the wine from one place to the other.
All the barriques have this opening, and every 6 months we rack it to a new barrique, leaving the solid deposits in the bottom, all the sediments that precipitate. Then we serve over a candle to get the clear wine out and allows choosing the best.
Julio, tell me about the history of this winery. It's a long history, right? More than 100 years old.
This winery was established in 1890. It was created as a consequence of a plague of insects, the phylloxera, that devastated all the vineyards in Europe, in France in particular. This represented an opportunity in Haro, a new business opportunity around the train station. There are 7 wineries established at the end of the 19th century. Specifically, La Rioja Alta was founded in 1890. There are 5 families from La Rioja and the Basque Country who decide to start this initiative that has already lasted 132 years.
How does it work? We are over the deposits.
We are over the tanks for the elaboration. We've brought the grapes down by gravity from above. We have tanks of different materials and sizes. We work with vessels of small sizes as we want to keep the traceability of the wine. When we work with a vineyard, we have 90 vineyards. We test the grapes during the whole summer, analysing each vineyard independently. We have stainless steel vessels, these ones of conical shape, and these ones are concrete. They are concrete covered with a resin.
And here's where you do your wines of author.
This is where we treat those vineyards that are very old and small, with not enough grapes for a large vessel. And we elaborated them separately for their quality. We don't do a different wine from each vessel. We use these micro-vinifications to have more ingredients to achieve higher variety when we make all our wines. This is the area where we elaborate the Tobelos whites. The whites are fermented in concrete eggs or in new French oak barriques of different sizes. We have barriques of 500 litres, barriques of 300 litres, and barriques of 225 litres, different sizes that confer different characteristics to the wines. For example, our Sauvignon Blanc is made on egg.
Here we have one open.
When we talk about the lees in white wines, sometimes we don't really know what they are. When yeast dies in the wine, we put them back in suspension with a bâtonnage. Here we see one barrique with a glass end, where we can see the wine is clear down to here when the sediment starts. What we do when the lees are all the way to the bottom of the barrique is to force them back into suspension.
Do you make this often?
You see? They get back into suspension. This is done daily at the beginning for about a minute on each barrique. From here, where we have the whites, we will pass to the area where we have the barriques for the reds.
Here you have a lot of barriques for the reds.
Yes, this is where we do the crianza of our reds. We have around 800 barriques. We replace 25% of them each year, giving them a total life of 3 to 4 years. 70% of our barriques are French oak from different coopers, forests and toasting levels. This allows us to make wines with a diverse number of options with Tobelo's personality. The new barriques that we add each year are separated from the older barriques. This is because, as we do with the whites, we also do bâtonnage with the reds. Another characteristic is we don't do racking, but we refill each barrique. This is to ensure traceability all the way to the barrique. The wine in this barrique has not been mixed with any other. We know from which vessel it comes, from which vineyard. This really helps us in the future to know how each wine reacts to the process in this type of barrique.
And when you finish, you put them to sleep. How long?
For us, the time in the bottle is very important. As you can see here, we have more than a vintage here. The crianza stays more than a year, but for the reserva, when you open a Tobelos bottle in the market, it has spent 5 years here.
Natalia, we are in Bodegas Contino, which is precisely where you elaborate the wines from the grapes in the vineyard we have visited before. Can you tell us about this project of your company?
Yes, we take all from that vineyard. We have 62 hectares, and in Contino we only use our own grapes.
From that vineyard, it all comes here.
We are here because I want to show you this knight, Don Pedro Samaniego, who gives name to this winery. Don Pedro Samaniego was a soldier who fought for the Catholic kings right before the Battle of Reino de Granda in 1492 against the Arbors. He was the Contino, which is now the name of the property. The Contino was a military figure that took care of the safety of the children of the kings. Then it takes the name of Don Pedro Samaniego as Vineyard of the Contino.
He was associated with this property.
The Catholic kings, as explained in this document, gave him the land and this house and the installations around.
Tell me about this winery. It elaborates very special wines.
It is a very antique winery where we elaborate reserves, grandes, reserves, and monovarietal, and our wine of author known as Vina del Olivo.
And you do a Garciano Moro varietal, right?
Yes, we were pioneers with this varietal. It is also Chaufinus of Rioja, although, as it happens with everything, is now being planted in other DOs, but is Autochthonous of Rioja. Here is Rioja is used externally as it provides intense colour and acidity to the blends.
With Tempranillo.
Yes, to help Tempranillo to age for a long time. It is found in reserves and Gran Reservas. In the past, when most people was pulling Graciano vines, we were planting more. And now we have really old vines of Graciana, which provides very special characteristics.
It is not only a Graciano 100%, but also a very old Graciano. Natalia, we are in the cemetery. Here's where you have the bottles with longer history. Show me one of them. What do you have here? What are these numbers?
These are real niches. Like in a cemetery, it looks like a real cemetery. Here we keep a few bottles of each of the vintages, from the different reservas or Gran Reservas or Vina del Olivo. It is easy. See, for example, niche 27. If you take this paper, you see number 27 contains a Reserva from 1995. By the way, an excellent vintage in Rioja, and there are only 14 bottles left. Anyways, nobody touches this. We keep traceability of everything. Note that we only have 14 bottles left from 1995.
However, here you keep many more.
Yes, because as we receive many recognitions way after a given vintage, for example, the 2010 and the 2011 were excellent vintages in Rioja. Who knows if in 7 years from now we will receive an award? It is policy of the winery to keep a large number of bottles than we used to do in the past.
We do 2 types of fermentation. We use carbonic maceration for the young wines, which for me is the most natural wine there is. You take the grapes from the vineyard and place it in the fermentation vessel.
Wait, explain me the carbonic maceration.
Carbonic maceration. It is very typical here. It's our young wine. It's fresh and fruity with aromas of red fruits, raspberries. Very easy to drink.
You take the whole cluster of grapes and
insert them in the vessel without destemming. Then there is an intracellular fermentation. In other words, the fermentation starts inside the berry. It eventually explodes and then continues the fermentation for a while. In the past, we stomped on the grapes. Now we take it and pass it into another vessel where it finishes the fermentation. The wine still has 20 to 30 grams of sugar and finishes fermentation in another vessel, and the wine is done. Easy but fantastic. This is wine to drink every day.
it respects the fruity character of the grapes.
There is no wine more fruity. Carbonic maceration. Despite what you try, this is the most fresh, with great acidity, and stems provide a particular character. I love it.
Here we are, where wines acquire personality.
Yes, this is important. But not important because we want to get the barrique into the wine, but because the wine needs time to mature and improve.
These are particularly large.
We have different capacities. These are 500 liters, and we also have 225, 300, 400, 500, all the way to the largest of 2,500 liters. It is important the time in the barrique for the wine to round up. But for us, it's very important that it retains the spirit of the plant, which is the grape. In our wines, fruit is the first you will feel.
We come from the singular vineyard, so great, El Castrijo. You have others. Do you treat those wines in a different way in the crianza?
For these special vineyards and the special varieties that we use, we want people to feel the special character of the vineyard. And we do different elaborations for each wine, looking for its identity. Some age in barriques of 500 liters, while others in 400 and 225. We always look for the barrique that matches the quality of the vineyard. Some see barriques from different coopers. Little by little, we have tried to match each wine to the barrique. That makes it better display the characteristics of where it comes from. The terrain, the area, the climate.
This is your elaboration area, the small elaboration area. How many liters you can process here in parallel?
We have 1,000 hectares. In a normal year, we produce around 7 million kilos. Here we can process 3.5 or 4 million kilos at once. We start processing the vineyards at 400 meters of height, and we end with the ones at 700 meters. We elaborate for 40 days approximately, since we start the harvest of the youngest wines until we finish with the latest vineyards.
40, 50,000?
50,000 litres.
And you have up to?
100.
You depend a lot on technology to maintain control of all these vessels.
They have all the technical advances that were available in 2000 when they were installed. They are vessels that control the temperature and automise the remontage process. Fermentation is produced always at the same temperature. The elaboration vessels are not the same as the maturation ones. The elaboration vessels possess the technology to proceed with the parameters dictated by the enologist and for each grape.
We are in the area where you have the barriques, which is truly impressive. Tell us how you mature your wines.
Wines in Rioja stay in the winery for 3 years on average. Some wine categories stay much longer than what is mandated by the general wine regulation in Spain. A crianza must spend 360 days between barrique and bottle, double than what is mandated by the country law. Similarly with Rioja Reservas, which must spend 1,080 days in the winery, at least 180 days in bottle. A Gran Reserva 5 years, with 3 in barrique or 3 in bottle, so they must stay at least 2 years in barrique and another 2 in bottle. The 5th year is up to the producer, depending on the character they will provide the wine.
Rioja has traditionally used American oak, but now French is starting to be used more.
Particularly for the long maturations, American oak invades the wine more. For short crianthas, American oak provides the coconut and vanilla so characteristic of Rioja wines. But it's true that for Reservas and Gran Reservas, we use French oak more, as it is more gentle in transferring aromas more slowly, and is less aggressive with the grapes, which is why French oak is being used more for long crianthas.
Victor, we're in your winery. Impressive. Tell us about how you made your wines, particularly the one from the vineyard you sold us.
For the harvest of the vineyard, we use boxes to protect the grapes and make them arrive fresh to the winery. We usually keep them macerating for 2 to 3 days in the cold to extract the fruity aromas, and the fermentation starts, taking 7 to 10 days. For the production of wine from that vineyard, which is called El Sueño de Amado, we only use tears wine. We only use the press for other wines. Once we get the tears wine with the residual heat from fermentation, we bring it to the concrete vessels. In these deposits, with the help from the residual heat from fermentation, the wine will undergo the malolactic conversion. Garnacha is complicated when it comes to the malolactic conversion because it has less malic acid than other varieties. The malolactic conversion consists in converting malic acid into lactic acid. Aside of having less malic acid, Garnacha wines usually have more alcohol grade and lower pH, which are conditions inadequate for this process. Once the malolactic conversion is done, we wait until March after harvest, and we leave the wine to age from March to March of the following year, 12 months in French oak, as we think French oak respects the aromas more. We bleed a portion to make rosé. Our white also comes to these deposits to macerate with the skins. A cold maceration for 12 to 16 hours. Then we bleed it, and we end pressing. The elaboration, it's like it has been done for many years in Rioja and other places, with remontage or moving the wine with air, using pumps to interchange the liquid and solid parts. With remontage or moving the wine with big air bubbles to break the cap.
Oxygen or nitrogen?
Nitrogen. Then for bleeding to transfer the wine out of the vessels is very simple, as the winery has 4 levels. We connect the vessels with a hose down to the concrete deposit in a lower level. As the base of the winery is all concrete deposits, so we don't need to use pumps.
By gravity.
Yes, which is the highest quality way and the most convenient.
You have the concrete deposits down here.
Yes, we have 7 deposits of 20,000 liters. We have capacities of 40,000 over there and 20,000 over here, of 60,000 below, and the last ones of 100,000 at the very bottom. Concrete helps to precipitate all the gross lees. In 2 to 3 days we do racking and take the clean wine with the fine lees, and we let it rest in concrete for the malolactic conversion to happen in concrete. Some make the malo in barrique. Here we keep vineyards separated. Depending on the wine, it stays in barrique for a determined time. Depending on where it goes, it will stay more or less and in one barrique or another. In the end, we have also the option to bottle a particular vineyard separately, such as a singular vineyard, like the Graciano, or from a specific vineyard. Or we can also do a coupage for a particular style of wine.
What kind of oak do you use? French, American?
We use both, mainly French and American, but also Romanian oak, which is giving us great results. In the end, the more complexity, the more valued by all. If you add a third component, it gives you a bit more complexity and distinction.
Romanian oak is similar to French oak. The density.
Yes, the grain density is similar. Indeed, it is Rugo petrae, which is the European species, and the American, which is the Quercus alba. It has a different physiognomy and provides notes that are more aromatic.
We've had the opportunity to taste many different wines by the hand of their makers. Fantastic wines that fully express the idiosyncrasy of the people, of the different sub-zones of Rioja. We've also had the opportunity to pair them with the extraordinary food of this area. Of course, I have my own favorites, but they may differ from yours. Each wine is made for a different person, and Rioja has wines for all of us. I'm holding a Viña Real Crianza from 1995, courtesy of the owner of Hotel Arrope in the town of Faro, wine capital of Rioja, and it still shows full life and tension. Delicious.
Yes, let's start with our most emblematic wine that everyone pretty knows well, which is Viña Ardanza. It's from 2015. This is a wine that we elaborate with 2 varieties. It has 80% Tempranillo that comes from our vineyard situated in the medium zone of Rioja. And then it has 20% Garnacha from a vineyard in Rioja Oriental. It's a truly spectacular place. In both cases, it has a particularity that is really important. Both vineyards are situated at the same height above sea level. We elaborate this wine with both varieties separated, and we make the crianza in American oak barrels. In the case of Tempranillo, for 36 months, and in the case of Garnacha, during 30. As you can see, it has deep color with high intensity, revealing those notes of a wine aged in barrique. A nice color with notes that reveal a wine that has already 7 years of age. In the nose, It provides the aromatic intensity that you get from these varieties, from Tempranillo and Garnacha, but it's also very well rounded with notes provided by the American oak. Toast, vanilla, caramel, that together with red fruit jam makes this blend a very pleasant one. In mouth you get this silkiness characteristic of classic wines. Fine and elegant tannins, well balanced, fresh and long-lasting. The flavors last for a long time, and it has good acidity.
Well, it has been a pleasure to taste this wine so special with you. Thank you very much for everything.
Glad to have you here. Cheers!
We're here now with Adriana Lauzirica, who is the enologist of Bodegas Tobelos, and we're going to be tasting some of the wines that Javier has been explaining us before. Is 100% Viura?
Is 100% Vioara. Importantly, this is from a singular vineyard, a very old vineyard of very low production. We're looking for concentration.
It smells beautifully.
In the nose, we have characteristics of Vioara. We have pear, apple, and some tropical notes. This wine is aged on its lees and oak. We can also feel the oak notes, particularly as it warms up. But we look for freshness and to display the fruits of the variety, for the wood to accompany, not to overpower it.
I feel the wood, as well as the leaves, but very gentle, all of it.
In the palate, we feel again the lees. We have this sweet entrance, without being a sweet wine, obviously. It's a way of speaking, and it is very balanced. It's a wine with acidity, but worked out with its lees. It surrounds the acidity and gives a rounded and persistent wine. You've swallowed and you continue feeling it for a long time. This is a complex white wine, special.
It presents different flavors, primary, secondary,
And even tertiaries, as it has been in the bottle for some time.
I particularly like this style of wines.
I love it too. This is a wine that can accompany a good meal, not only as an aperitif.
But this is what you say. Viura, in particular, is commonly given too much wood. This is not the case. This is very gentle.
Wood needs to accompany, not to overpower. We don't want to suppress such a high-quality grape.
This is our wine, Corazón del Lago, Heart of the Lake.
The one that you explained us before,
Exactly.
that is stoned by feet.
Exactly. So if you have a look in the color, this is a strong color, it's violet, because it's a young wine from 2020. We never use the oak with this wine because we want to maintain the typical winemaking process in the past. There was no oak in the wines, all young wine. So we sell it in the year. 100% Tempranillo, the variety. And in the nose, you see this wine is very, very aromatic.
It is aromatic. It has a red fruit, maybe even
Has a fruity aroma.
some black.
For me, this aroma is like the pure grape, the pure harvest. Because the carbonic maceration smells like that. Smells like very sweet in the nose. It's very special and totally different compared with other young wines. And when we drink it, cheers, salud.
Cheers. Sorry, I just got ahead. And I can actually, I'm still tasting all these kind of fruit, very intense
It's,
aromas and flavors.
It's a very long aftertaste in this wine.
It is?
So you can feel the flavor like 30 seconds after you drink it. And
And it fills your mouth with a lot of fruit.
Exactly, yeah. And this wine is 15% of alcohol on it, which is a high amount of alcohol. This alcohol is just in the heart. It's not as alcoholic the tears and not the press.
Right.
Just in the heart.
But see, I mean, high alcohol is usually something that I feel very quickly, but I believe because of the intensity of the fruit, I didn't feel it now. Now I can feel it definitively, but it's not that overpowering.
Yeah, it's very easy to drink, even with 15% of alcohol. And we call this wine el vino del abuelo, the wine of the grandpa, because it's a typical wine that our grandparents drank in our age.
I'd like to thank you for your welcoming of our team and to explain and show us this amazing subterranean cave that you have here.
Thank you very much to you.
Here we have the cellar from 1530,
Yes, from the 16th century.
dug into pure rock.
In the past, the way to conserve wine was to keep it underground. Here we have several meters deep. The temperature is the same in winter and summer. We know it's from the 16th century because some coins found we remodeled it. Before, the way to date places was to bury some coins when they built things.
It's scary. Let's have a look. You have the lagar here. It's a stone lagar. This is one of the few remaining.
I believe there are only 2 in Rioja still covered. We have used to make wine until 15 years ago. It is very old, with very large stones, and wine ferments here very nicely. And this is because the way they built it, and the sealing methods that favor fermentation.
Let's go all the way to the bottom.
Yes, let's taste some wines.
SYC.
These are the initials of my parents. It's a recognition to them. My father's name is Santiago and my mother's name is Carmen. The first thing you smell is black fruit with jam notes. The wine has spent 18 months in French oak barriques.
But it's not aggressive.
No, because the wine is powerful and dominates over the barrique. The barrique only helps.
It gives a sweet sensation.
It shows lots of flavors, the fruit. It has mineral notes, coffee, the wood notes, but mainly the fruit, the minerality.
Spices.
Yes, spices.
Then the tannins are
Yes, they are enveloping, not aggressive.
almost sweet.
This is the work of wood. This is what needs to happen to work out the tannin, often aggressive in wines, particularly in young wines, and make it sweeter, finer.
The wine is still there.
This has a very long finish, which is important in a wine, when it stays with flavors for a long time and you speak for a while and you still have the flavors there. This means that the wine has been made well, that the grape is good and that it is evolving well.
In the palate, it starts with the fruit, but it follows with other notes. Now I am feeling the spices again.
Toasted, yes. This is the evolution of a great wine.
I assume that it can still improve in the bottle.
Right now, this wine is still improving.
It has concentration, complexity, and intensity. Very well, fantastic. I love this wine.
This wine is from La Bastida, Rioja Alavesa, from centenary vines, and elaborated with care to demonstrate where we are from and who we are.
it's time to try their wines, and for that we have Ana Rubio, who is the enologist of the winery, of the bodega, and she's actually responsible of 2 million bottles of wine every year. Ana, thanks for tasting these wines with us. Are we going to start with the Tempranillo Blanco?
Yes, we will start with our Marqués de Reynosa Tempranillo Blanco. It's a wine of our private collection. In this case, is the white wine fermented in Barrique. It has spent 6 months in Barrique and is sold in Crianza. It's our first white Crianza and from 2019.
Okay then, let's try it. It's very aromatic.
Yes, it has a very aromatic intensity. We tried to keep the fruit of Tempranillo, which in this case gives tropical notes. Pineapple, banana, citric and floral notes. We preserve the fruit, but we also feel the notes from the wood, from the fermentation in French oak.
On its lees.
And Crianza on lees for 6 months.
The oak is not very present. It is very well integrated.
This is the idea, to market with the oak without losing the fruit essence. This is from the 2019 vintage. It only has 2 years of age.
It is the first time that I try a Tempranillo Blanco, which is a grape very special as it has mutated from Tempranillo and now is being exploited.
Yes, exactly. We bet for this variety because it emulated here in Rioja and is anti-Coronius. We are pushing for it. In the mouth, in my opinion, you get this tropical fruit. Pineapple, which is very well integrated with the oak notes. With sweet species, it also has good acidity and structure that makes the wine long-lasting.
Well, a pleasure. The wines are sensational. We will eat some ham now. Thanks a lot. We are in El Quisal restaurant with Manuel Alvarez, owner and chef of the restaurant, and we're here in Autol in Rioja Oriental, and we're gonna be tasting and trying a very particular dish that is tapa, Spanish tapa, but it's a very special one because he won a very prestigious award that is called Delantal de Oro de Rioja, that is kind of a golden apron, and it's not easy to win. So Manuel, muchas gracias por recibirnos. Cuéntanos un poquito. Manuel, thanks for receiving us. Tell us a bit about this. What is it?
The tapa is a torrija, which is typical from the area. It's a sweet dish of the area, but what we have done we call a trampantojo, which is giving it a flavor completely different and associated to the territory, which is the chorizo and bacon. We do an infusion with milk, chorizo and bacon. Then we put it in the torrija, in the milk, and we mark it with a chorizo infusion. It ends up like a pâté and egg yellow on the top, which is the expression of the bread with eggs and chorizo of the area. Basically, to get it all into the same dessert dish.
I believe the idea is great. I assume that with the award, it will be delicious. We'll let you prepare it and we will try it later.
Thanks. Here are the torrijas.
Fantastic. Let's see. They have an exquisite look.
Yes, I have the apron over there. I want to frame it.
Try it to see what you think.
It's a different flavor. It's a trampantojo of the typical torrija.
It's delicious.
Let's try first a monovarietal of Garnacha. It's called El Sueño Dorado, and it comes from the vineyard we have visited. It is a Crianza from 2017.
Decanted.
I have decanted it because we think that it's a wine that expresses all its potential after being in contact with air for a while.
Powerful color.
Yes, deep.
It has red fruit, wild berries.
It has lots of red fruits, wild fruit.
It has an aroma that I don't identify. Floral.
Yes, some toast notes as well. I believe that it's a very fruity wine on the nose, with wild fruits and balsamic notes, as well as toast notes from the Crianza. In the palate, it's a wine with structure, but gentle, fresh, round, and long, leaving the memory of what you have drunk.
The wood is very integrated, very smooth.
Yes, it has polished tannin.
And a great finish. The fruit stays with strong toasty notes at the end.
As I said before, we try the Crianza on wood to just accompany the wine.
It has great acidity, continuous.
It makes you drink more.
Very good, fantastic. Well, Victor, it has been a pleasure our visit to the Rioja Oriental. The wines of Garnacha and Graciano are sensational. Good luck with the commercialization.
Thank you for coming to visit us.
This is a Graciano 100%.
A 100% Graciano from 2017 that has been 14 months in barrique. We have to talk about different origins. This wine comes from a Graciano that we think it could be the oldest in the world, as the vines are from 1940. The vineyard was planted right after the war. These are bunch vines of Graciano in an area which is very sandy.
It has lots of aromas. It is very aromatic.
Yes, Graciano in the field, it's complicated. And to make a monovarietal is also complicated. Actually, you need a grape almost perfect, as it is not to blend but for a unique wine, because Graciano is very good to complement other wines. But if you want it for a monovarietal, you need the grape perfect and harvest at the right time. Black fruit dominates. The barrique is present, but does not dominate. Aromas are complex, with a very broad aromatic palate, and then in mouth it's fresh and has acidity, but it does not feel green or too acid. This is the secret of this wine, that being 100% Graciano, it does not feel vegetal.
It also has very round tannins, very integrated.
It has structure, but it has notable levels of glycerol. Maybe 14, almost 15 degrees of alcohol, but not of over-ripening, but of maturation. This makes the wine to be long, with a long finish, filling the mouth, and then long with many end notes.
Very interesting, this wine.
And different, because Rioja has something good, that is, that people know what to expect when asking for a Rioja. This helps all of us, as it's a style of wine known all around the world. But Rioja also allows us to do these small different things, that if you taste it in USA, no one would say this is a Rioja.
Thank you very much, Borja and Bodegas Manzanos, for receiving us and allow tasting these wines. Here we conclude our journey through Rioja. We started in the northwest and we end in the northeast. We have visited the 3 Riojas, perhaps the 4 Riojas, including Rioja del Reino. And I would remark the incredible diversity of Rioja. It is incredible that in such a small area, in comparison to other areas in the world, you have a diversity of approaches to winemaking that is impressive.
Thank you for your visit.
Salud!
Carry on.
Rioja is not only one of the best-known wine-producing areas of Spain, but perhaps the one providing the largest variety of wines in the Iberian Peninsula. The diversity of landscapes, towns, people, food and wine make this place a must visit. Salud!